Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Delaney, the North American Product Manager here at NeoLife International. And when I say here, I am actually here in our headquarters today. And today we have great content for our product call. We are going to go into the SAB, our Scientific Advisory Board, and we're going to talk about our tablets and how high-tech they are. So this interview today is with John Miller. John is our director of the SAB. He has decades of experience in product development. He started as an engineer and even worked at NASA. And then he switched gears, luckily for us, to product development, has been involved in developing more than 500 products in more than 50 countries. His experience and knowledge on nutritional science is extensive. So again, we're really lucky to have him on our team. He's going to be interviewing Mark Lohman, and Mark is our Director of Product Development and Quality. Mark also has decades of experience as a formulator and as a biologist. So again, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this call over to John and Mark, and they will talk to you about our tablets and our capsules, because the delivery system of our product is just as important as what's inside. I hope you're all having a great week, and thanks for joining today.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for sharing a little bit of time with us today as we get into the next session of Inside the SAB with Mr. Mark Lohman. And the topic today is NeoLife tablets, those high technology tablets, and how they are dramatically different than anything else that you will encounter in the marketplace. Mark has been with NeoLife for 26 years. I've known him for a long time. He started working with me way back, and we've done a lot of things over the years. He's the International Director of Product Development and Quality and a very important member of the Scientific Advisory Board. He has a background in biological sciences and a very deep understanding of pharmacy and manufacturing, which makes him one of the best possible candidates you could have for talking about the amazing difference in NeoLife tablet technology. So, hi there, Mark. How you doing? I've been looking forward to this.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. This is really great. You know, we had our first chat and conversation early in 1995. And I remember it well, just like it was just maybe last week or the week before. And one of the things that I like, John, in our discussions is I always learn something. So you've been a very good teacher and mentor over the years. I appreciate this time with you to be able to chat about this subject.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. We have been down a lot of paths together, solving some crazy challenges, and certainly our tablet technology has had many of those challenges to overcome. You know, NeoLife delivers a wide array of powerful bioactive ingredients. Everybody knows that. We go to foods and extract things that are, you know, at best unstable under certain conditions and can be completely lost if not handled properly. And then we find ways to deliver those things, and tablets have been one of the ways that we've been able to do that, and I think very successfully based upon the data that we have. But if you look at a NeoLife tablet, you might think it's just like every other tablet that you see on the market, and that could not be further from the truth. Though they appear the same from a content, stability, performance, and even a regulatory perspective, they are very different. Give us a little insight from your side, Mark.
Right, John. You know, we make tens of millions of tablets every year, and all different forms, you know, whether they're round or capsule, oblong. Sometimes we've even done some hexagonal shapes, different shapes, and also different forms. There's the chewables and the slow release or immediate release, or the targeted delivery tablets. And each shape, form, type of tablet presents its own series of challenges that need to be overcome, you know, whether it's, you know, making sure that it delivers nutrients to the right spot, or tableting things that don't really want to be made into a tablet.
Yeah.
And we make, like I said, millions and millions of tablets every year. And I think we do that extremely successfully with the highest level of quality.
Yeah, it's amazing. The interesting thing, or one of the things I find interesting about that is, you know, you can make a million or 10 million, or over a few years, you can make hundreds of millions of these things. And in our case, every one of them comes out essentially exactly the same because of the depth of the technology that we make sure delivers all of those bioactive nutrients time after time after time. Mm-hmm. You know, NeoLife has been a leader in tableting technology for decades. I've spent a lot of time at the CRN and know some of the challenges that the industry has confronted. Actually, we were setting tablet manufacturing standards for ourselves before government regulations ever existed that demanded that we do certain things certain ways. In many many cases, by the time the government had a regulation in place, we were already doing it or doing much more. I know from experience that making highly functional tablets is not a simple thing. There are many physical and biological actions that need to be considered. Characteristics of the nutrient or nutrients to be delivered, you know, are they powdered? Do they lend themselves to being powders? Are they stable? Do you have to protect them from oxygen or light or whatever it might be? And, you know, on top of that, you have to come up with a selection of the most appropriate carriers to deliver that. And then there's things like compression ratios and size and shapes and coatings and disintegration time and moisture sensitivity and shelf life and much, much more that all need to be considered. On top of that, as you know, we don't always get to use the simple, straight, off-the-shelf sort of ingredients that a lot of others would choose to use. We're very strict about guidelines of what can and cannot be in our products. It's amazing. You and I have had many challenges in this development over the years, and tablets have been some of those most challenging because of the standards that we apply and the things that we demand from our products, the performance that we demand. So give us an overview of the perspective from the formulator engineer position that you occupy for us.
Sure. You know, John, you know, from a formulator's point of view, the reason behind using tablets is so that what we use is a nutrient delivery system that ensures uniformity and consistent delivery of the active compounds. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the goal. And it has to be also in a format that's both chemically and physically stable. But, you know, like you say, we're using nutrients and compounds and extracts that other people don't use that are not terribly easy to put into a tablet. For instance, you know, there's different challenges based upon these different ingredients, these different, you know, actives as we call them. Mm-hmm. The whole food derived complex ingredients like flavonoids or from cruciferous plants. These extracts are really sensitive to degradation. And they require some special handling so that we can preserve the nutrient profile that's coming from these ingredients. There's some more things that are a little bit more stable, whether there's the, say, vitamin C or some minerals like calcium. Yeah. They're a little more stable, and they can be formulated a little bit differently. They can even be made into chewable tablets with no real degradation, but they still need to be protected as well. And there's different, you know, avenues for that. Then, of course, you know, B vitamins, C vitamins, we may want to make those sort of meter out the nutrients slowly over time, even up to 8 hours, so that we can appropriately deliver those nutrients in a bioavailable form rather than having them lost. Now, here's a special one, and we've talked about this before, is the lipid-soluble ingredients. Mm. Now, those are things, for instance, like, you know, the carotenoids. We might find that in Betagard or vitamin D and E. These lipid solubles, they don't want to be made into a tablet. As you can imagine, try to take some fat and then some lipids and compress it. It doesn't want to compress. So there's special needs in formulating that are required to be making tablets from these types of things. Yeah. And then, of course, let's consider the garlic and enzyme actives that must survive the stomach environment, get into the intestines where they're the most bioavailable. And those require some special needs. There's special challenges to achieve those types of tablets. So it's not always easy, It's a challenge, but it's kind of a fun challenge.
Yeah, I'd like to say that it's never easy, but it is a fun challenge. Sometimes when we have sat down to talk about things, we have said, how are we going to do this? Because on the surface, it looks like it's not something you can do. You mentioned getting a lipid into a tablet and still having it arrive in the body in its sort of lipid soluble form so it can be utilized readily. That I can remember some of the things we went through trying to figure that out. Not an easy thing to do. And, for us, we have to do it so that everything that we want to deliver, in the case of carotenoids, many of them in one complex, all not only come out of the plant and get into the tablet, but, when the tablet goes through the system and gets into the body, that they actually deliver those things. So, and we do a lot of different bioactives, as you pointed out. And some of them are, relatively easy to do, but most of them, because of the demands we put on our formulations, are very, very complicated, very complex things. But, you and I know that the bioactive component of a tablet is only part of the equation. Now you got to make it into a tablet, and that tablet has to be it has to be stable. It has to be something that can be handled rapidly by machinery. It can be put in a bottle, and it can have a shelf life that's a reasonable length of time, 2 or 3 years, depending upon the product, and still arrive in the stomach or wherever it needs to be and release its nutrients and do its job. I mean, that technology, not only the nutrients that are in there, but the technology that allows us to develop a tablet, a delivery system, if you will, that complex is a pretty high technology thing. And I know you spend a lot of time working on that, Mark.
Right, John. A lot of the time is spent on these choosing the appropriate delivery system, the appropriate carriers, and the appropriate, what we call now, tableting aids, and to make sure that we can take these active compounds, make them into a tablet, and that they will stay a tablet and be stable, and also have protected nutrients so that they're shelf life stable over the 2 or 3 years stability time period that we give to our products. And different nutrients demand different tableting aids. And we call them tableting aids nowadays. We used to call them inactive ingredients.
Yeah.
But, they have activity. That's an incorrect description. They do have activity. They do have function. So tableting aids, better descriptor. They're used to help us take these active compounds that don't want to be made into tablets into a good, stable, tableted nutrient delivery system. And really, a formulator has a pretty large toolkit of these compounds. There's reference books of tableting aids, and they're thick, and these are all there to help develop a robust tableted formula. Now, these tableting aids, in general, but they're divided into classes, and their classes are based upon what they help the formula and the tablet do, what their function is. So we have flowing agents, and that helps make an even product mix and helps it flow evenly through the whole tableting process. There's compression agents. This is an important piece for us. These compression aids that help under pressure, these compounds, these ingredients compress into a tablet form, but then you have to follow in with binding agents, these binders that help. You've got this tablet form. So you've got these binders that will help maintain that form. They link together and keep that tableted, robust tablet form. Of course, once you have a tablet, it does need to deliver the nutrients. It needs to come apart. So the class of compounds we use for that are called disintegrates. And there's different disintegrates based upon the timing of the delivery of the nutrient. So either immediate or long-term or delayed. Quick thing on coatings too, we also have coatings. The coatings are there to help protect the tablet, but also to ease consumption of the tablet. Now those are the typical tableting aids that we use, those classes, but there's also some atypical, a little bit unusual things like gelling agents or pH sensitive compounds or hydrophobic compounds. And those are things that help with delayed or sustained release tablets.
Yeah, I've we spent a lot of time talking about these in the scientific advisory board and then in the product development meetings that you and I have shared. And it's always amazing to me all of the little factors that have to be taken into consideration to make a tablet do what it's supposed to do. Your comments about pH sensitivity and hydrophobic actions, that keeping it away from water because they tend to absorb a lot of moisture and things like that are just examples. When I think of how we manage things like our threshold control products, where we put the tablet together in a way that, like you say, it delivers everything that it's supposed to do in the stomach, but it sort of degrades or breaks down, doesn't degrade, breaks down over time, that results in a threshold control, a continuous flow of the nutrients, whether it's the B vitamins or vitamin C, into the bloodstream over a prolonged period of time. We do that because we know that water-soluble nutrients tend to move through the body quickly. If you dump a bunch in, just straight up vitamin C or something like that into the body, it will pick it up, metabolize it, and pass it through very quickly. So in order to extend the sort of window of biological activity, we developed these threshold control technologies that represent a lot of what you just talked about. One of the things about tableting aids, not inactives, I agree, it's no longer inactives, but these ingredients that we use to keep these products together, we have very strict ingredients, what we can use for the nutrients themselves, but we have similarly strict rules and regulations on what we can use for tableting aids. Not all tableting aids are fine for us. There's a lot of them that on the surface they appear to be the same, but when you dig into the background, they're quite different. One example I like to use is stearic acid. Stearic acid is a naturally occurring fatty acid. It's found widely in the human food chain. Your body knows exactly what to do with it when it arrives, but there are lots of different kinds of stearic acid out there on the marketplace, and you can get what I would call cheap and dirty stearic acid, just the bottom basement level stuff, and then you can get the more sophisticated stuff. For us, we look into things that not just stearic acid, but we need to know where our stearic acid came from. We need to know its sources. We need to know that its purity levels, and we need to know that it's a non-GMO derived thing and things like that. So there's a very big difference in what we can put into the binding agent, the tableting side of our products as well.
That's right. And I've said this before, and it surprises some people, especially people that are not within NeoLife, but we treat these tableting aids the same way as we treat the nutritional compounds in terms of quality and selection. Mm-hmm. And so we do the same sorts of testing and auditing, identity testing, and testing for potential contaminants that we might do on our nutritional ingredients. They're handled the same way because they're all part of the same formula. So really, that thick tome I just mentioned on tableting aids, most of that we just kind of set aside because our toolbox is much more limited because of our high quality standards. For instance, your stearic acid example is really apt, and it's a really good one because a lot of companies will use, say, animal source stearic acid. We can't do that. We've set high quality standards. They have to be not just plant sourced. It's got to be non-GMO, and it also has to be certified and audited to be sustainably harvested plants. Can't just come from anywhere.
Exactly.
So the other examples, all of our ingredients, the coatings, the flowing agents, the disintegrating agents, they're all derived from non-animal sources that are non-GMO and sustainable, and from pure sources as well. So we are very limited in what we can use. It sort of makes for a challenge, but then, like I said, we love the challenge.
Yeah, we do, and I think that we also, like the idea of, setting standards for ourselves that maybe others don't really care too much. Your comment about it being sustainably sourced plant-derived materials, I don't know how many companies actually care about whether the quote unquote inactives, the tableting agents in their products actually are environmentally friendly and, eco-sensitive and things like that. Well, like you say, we treat those ingredients just the same way we treat any ingredient in any NeoLife product. They have to be validated. They have to meet this very strict sort of criteria for all of the many, many things that we hold sacred to how we conduct ourselves in the world and how we manufacture products and so on.
That's a big difference between.
There's also a side to the idea of tableting. It's the target of the tablet, right? Obviously, a chewable tablet is targeted to be chewed, so that becomes pretty obvious. But just because you have a tablet doesn't mean that you want everything to happen in the stomach once you swallow it. Matter of fact, we have developed what we call targeted delivery technology, which allows us to actually, through our tableting technologies, determine exactly where the tablet is going to disintegrate and how it's going to break down and how it's going to deliver those nutrients, and probably most appropriately, where it's going to happen. Prolonged disintegration of threshold control we've talked about, and the things that are sustained release and intestine targeted enzymes. Those represent challenges unto themselves. Give us a little insight into what we do to get that job done too.
Right. So, these, like you mentioned, these different forms have different challenges and that have to be met through the formulating, for instance, the chewable, you mentioned that, it has to come apart in the mouth, but there's challenges to that that have to be met. The tablet has to have a robust integrity and stability. We typically will formulate chewables so that they taste good. They have to taste good, but they also have the right mouth feel. So it's got to have a good crunch. It's got to be hard, but not too hard, but it can't be too soft either.
Yeah.
And, there's different tools that we use, different aids to work with that. The stomach targeted tablet, where the tablet come apart in the stomach, disintegrate there. Some may say that's a little bit easier to deal with. But you really have to work and develop so that the nutritional compounds are stable and protected, and that you have maintain the good tablet robustness throughout. So the stomach targeted tablets, some may say, are a bit easier, but really there's different challenges involved with that as well, because these tablets, the ingredients need to be protected, and the tablet needs to be robust, yet it needs to disintegrate quickly when it's in the stomach to make these active ingredients available immediately. Threshold control, again, we talked about a little bit about that, but those is a particular challenge. When the tablet reaches the stomach, it cannot immediately disintegrate.
Yeah.
It must slowly disintegrate. We're using hydrophobic compounds to help repel water that's in your system. It helps meter these things out, but it has to disintegrate. It can't just be a bullet, and go through the system. So it does disintegrate slowly over time, and we measure that. Then there's the intestine-targeted tablets, of course, as you can imagine. That's a challenge because those tablets need to remain unchanged in the stomach, the harsh, acidic stomach environment.
Yeah.
They cannot disintegrate. They can't release any nutrient. Once that tablet passes into the intestines, it needs to disintegrate. There's no metering out. It has to disintegrate in the intestine because it's at that point those nutrients are uptaken into the system.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. That targeted delivery technology that we talk about on our products is really a big difference, I think, that people don't realize, that you have to have a product in the case of something like garlic, for example, you have to have a product that remains intact as it goes through the very harsh environment of the stomach, very acidic, that would typically, the stomach's job is to start breaking things down. It's a big part of the digestive process. And it would typically succumb to that, but we put these tablets together so that they survive that very acidic pH of the stomach. But like you say, once they arrive in the intestine, which is more alkaline, they have to break down. So controlling the relationships between acidity and alkalinity and the tablet and the coating and its ingredients makes for very high technology stuff. But that's one of the things that we like to tell people that we work at doing very well, and that is delivering nutrients where they do the most good. If they're no sense delivering them to the stomach, something like garlic allium complex to the stomach, if you need the enzyme that's in the garlic to activate the compound, because the enzyme will be killed by the acid and the compound will never get activated. So much of the benefit of garlic is lost right at that point. So those sorts of things really in that technology make it stand out. Very strict demands on how products perform, very strict demands on what they contain, very strict demands on the sourcing of not only the bioactive ingredients, but the tableting aids, very, very high technology stuff that the only way I can summarize it is it's extremely complex business, right? Extremely complex technology. I want to take a moment to thank you all for staying tuned here and listening in. And once again, to thank you, Mark, for sharing this with me. And it's been a real pleasure. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thanks for sharing a little bit of time with us today as we get into the next session of Inside the SAB with Mr. Mark Lohman. And the topic today is NeoLife tablets, those high technology tablets, and how they are dramatically different than anything else that you will encounter in the marketplace. Mark has been with NeoLife for 26 years. I've known him for a long time. He started working with me way, way back, and we've done a lot of things over the years. He's the International Director of Product Development and Quality and a very important member of the Scientific Advisory Board. He has a background in biological sciences and a very deep understanding of pharmacy and manufacturing, which makes him one of the best possible candidates you could have for talking about the amazing difference in NeoLife tablet technology. So hi there, Mark. How you doing? I've been looking forward to this.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. This is really great. We had our first chat and conversation early in 1995. And I remember it well, just like it was just maybe last week or the week before. And one of the things that I like, John, in our discussions is I always learn something. So you've been a very good teacher and mentor over the years. I appreciate this time with you to be able to chat about this subject.
So let's take another look here. Let's take a look at how all this gets done real quickly. All right. So when the SAB comes up with some crazy thing that we want to extract, okay, and we want to get sort of something out of the skin of grapes or whatever it might be. And this ingredient that we want to deliver has got a certain biomarker in it that determines its potency. So not only are we just extracting those compounds from the grape skin, but we are establishing often milligram or sometimes even microgram standards for how much has to appear in every tablet. And on top of that, where it's going to get delivered. So often these are challenges that haven't come up before. I know in much of the work that we've done in the research community, when we go out to investigate an ingredient or a nutrient in whole foods, very often we find that the ability to investigate that is very limited, that we actually have to pioneer the analytical procedures to get the job done, as well as figure out how to do the technology to extract it. So, often it's something that's never before been done. So what do we do? How do we get that done from sort of a step-by-step process? How do we get from a crazy idea that the SAB has into a tablet that delivers something to the gastrointestinal tract, wherever it needs to be in the body, and provides that powerful benefit that we know that nutrient has?
Well, when the project guideline or the product guideline comes from the SAB down to the development team, it always presents a challenge. But like I said, we thrive on that. We enjoy these challenges. And I was going to start by saying, well, John, it begins in the product development laboratory, but actually it begins before that, because what we have is a series, a limited number of qualified suppliers of these types of compounds that we work with, that we've audited and we've qualified. And it's a small team of these suppliers that are uniquely qualified to supply us with these nutritional, whether it's extracts or elements that go into our product. And it's these types of folks, it's these types of testing, that it's good to have this type of core that we work with intimately, because like you say, we may come up with an extract that research has shown is going to be beneficial, whether it's an extract from grapes or an extract of some other type of food, whole food ingredient. We may have to work with the supplier on the extraction technique so that the elements that we're looking for are preserved and not degraded in whatever processes that we develop. So anyway, from them, okay, then we get our ingredients that we want to start working with in the product development laboratory, and it all starts what we call the benchtop development, because we're working on the lab bench here. And the first steps, we get the raw material in, and we do a lot of analysis. And again, these are from our pre-qualified suppliers, so we know that the quality's going to be there, more so than if we just go off to some shelf and grab something somewhere. But we still, we need to analyze these things. We test them. We test for nutritional levels. And like you said, we may have to develop the analytical methods to do this. Very often, what we're using are ingredients that haven't been used before anywhere else. And beyond that, these nutritional compounds haven't been used or tested before. So you can't just go to a laboratory and just say, well, test this for X, Y, Z. We may have to develop the methods ourselves. On top of that, of course, you got the chemical and nutritional properties, but we're also looking at the physical properties of the ingredient. Is it a powder? Is it granular? What's the particle size distribution? Are we going to have to adjust the size, adjust the particle size distribution to help make a tablet? Are we going to have to do some milling or some granulating? So all that physical nature comes into play as well. We also check for the stability of the ingredient. In other words, is this ingredient light sensitive? Is it going to degrade within light? Because that implies then the active nutritional components are degrading. Is it stable to heat? Is it stable to moisture, humidity? So we really have to dig in, and because that's going to go to the final quality of the tablet itself.
Yeah, for sure.
We also, when we make these formulas, it's not just one ingredient. There's a lot of different, a variety of nutritional ingredients. So we have to test whether these things are going to interact with each other in a negative way, because we don't want that to happen in the tablet, because that will negatively affect maybe the shelf life, maybe the actual integrity of the tablet. It's certainly going to be affecting what nutrients we're going to be delivering. One of the things about also using our pre-qualified, our team of suppliers, is that any potential contaminants that may exist are greatly, greatly minimized. But we still test these ingredients for any potential contaminant, whether it's heavy metals or pesticides. But we have to do the due diligence because we have to learn everything there is to know about that ingredient before we start formulating. Then, of course, once we learn everything there is to know about our ingredients, we have to select what tableting aids we're going to use. And that is all dependent upon what form the tablet is going to take. Whether it's going to be immediately released or slow released. Again, we're going to be doing compatibility studies because the tableting aids, we certainly don't want them to negatively affect the active compounds. They have to be stable. And we have to make sure that these are going to be functionality, the functionality is there. Then once we have, okay, we've got this set of active ingredients, nutritional compounds. We've got our set of tableting aids that we believe are going to work. Then we have to select the appropriate tools, the tableting tools themselves. You know, is it going to be a large tablet, a small tablet? What's the best way to do this? Is it going to be round? I mean, it all affects the performance of the final tableted product.
Right.
Then, once we've done through all of that, a lot of the testing involved there, only then do we start making what we call benchtop samples, you know, maybe 5 or 10 tablets, maybe up to 100 tablets. And then we can take those as samples, take them over to the SAB. They're the qualifiers.
Cool. Yeah. You know, the process, very diligent as all of our processes are, takes us a long time to develop these things. The idea of developing, you know, making a product, first you come up with an idea, then you come up with some theoretical things that you want to work with, and then you try it on what I call benchtop development, as we just talked about, trying to end up with something that meets our criteria. There's a lot of testing that goes on. The first time you put these things together is essentially never the only time you do it. You do it over and over and over, because as you make each sample, you have to go through this challenge, heat stability, temperature, you know, how temperature affects it, moisture affects it, how light affects it, how the integrity of the tablet remains, and it goes on and on and on. For the sake of time, I want to jump forward a little bit here, Mark, and talk about our artificial stomach and the role that it plays in research and development of products. You know, we have been using the artificial stomach now for many, many, many years. It was a very early a sort of a research tool for us back long as I can remember, back into the 70s. Again, well before that sort of technology was widespread anywhere. And even today, it's still not maybe as widespread as it should be. But it's something that we use all the time, because the artificial stomach allows us to get control over those features of that tablet. So when we put something together, we can actually look at and very directly mimic what's going to happen when the person consumes that. You know, is it going to break down? I know a lot of our tablets are designed for immediate release. You know, and immediate for us can be a matter of minutes after it reaches the stomach, because we want that material to be there and break down, have the tablet disintegrate and then dissolve and then disperse, the basis of our 3D technology. So tell us about the role of the artificial stomach here, if you will, in this development process, and how it makes NeoLife products, NeoLife tablets stand out.
So in the, you know, as I mentioned, we take samples to the SAB. If they give their blessing, and then, you know, this is conforming to the project and to the guidelines that they've developed. So we do further testing. This is where we bring then, of course, the QC team in, and they do a lot of lab analysis, like you were alluding to, the testing and stability challenges, and we're looking at all the different aspects of the physical and chemical aspects of the tablet. And then here's where, you know, we as a development team, we bring in the artificial stomach, as it's called, and it's a really great tool. It's a NeoLife developed technology decades and decades ago, utilized before other companies were actually even thinking that this was an important aspect of development. You need to develop a tablet that releases where it's supposed to, you know. But at this point, yes, John, you're right. We start looking at the release profile using our artificial stomach. And that simulates the stomach environment with the simulated gastric, so it's highly acidic, and also the peristalsis simulated movement of the stomach, because, you know, that also acts upon the tablet itself. And so we validate and verify immediately released tablets that disintegrate within minutes in the stomach. We can see that, we watch it. If it's going to be a delayed release, like a targeted delivery type of release and disintegration, we can watch that. It's got to survive through the stomach environment for an hour. If it's a sustained release, we watch that too. It starts to disintegrate in the stomach, but it has to move into the intestinal environment and meter itself out over 8 hours. So this is really a critical tool in designing in the proper disintegration, dissolution, dispersion of the nutrients. So this is the time where we employ that NeoLife technology.
Yeah.
I want to just say real quick though, John, there's different NeoLife technologies and expertise employed throughout the whole tablet development process. So it's not just we have this one NeoLife technology. There's a lot of different processes that we've developed over time. But, you know, that's probably for a different discussion.
Yeah, well, you know, I think if we, at the risk of disclosing any trade secrets, I don't think we want to go too deep into some of the technologies that we apply here and how we get it done, because there's a lot of people out there that would be interested in knowing those little tricks. You know, we have a reputation in both the scientific community and the academic community, the regulatory community, and the industry in general of being the company with great product quality. So, and you know, that's based on technology that is hard to come by, comes from decades, literally, of you know, pushing the envelope, trying to find ways to do things when, as we started out talking about, when it seemed impossible at the beginning, and we end up finding a way to get that done. It's just one of the hallmarks of the company, if you will. You know, the artificial stomach, that sort of technology, you know, I guess it's around today. There's some USP standards and things like that that do that sort of thing. But again, what people don't realize is this is something that we've had in practice for, 40 years now that we've been having this technology. We've updated it over time. When we first developed the artificial stomach, it wasn't like you could go buy one. You actually had to make your own. So we made that technology in our laboratory, and over time we refined it and developed it and made it better and better and better. So those sorts of things separate NeoLife from all the others out there. It's not just the ingredients, and it's not just the tableting aids, in this case, talking about tablets. It's the technology behind it. It's all the things we do. And then on top of that, it is a rigorous quality control procedure. I know when we manufacture these tablets, you know, that it's like a pharmacy. It's like they're made to drug standards. You know, there's this process of identifying a batch sheet and then weighing out the ingredients and confirming that, and then mixing them together the right way and putting those into quarantine until it's confirmed that everything is in that, and then releasing it to the tableting department where it's made into tablets, and they're put into quarantine until it's released by quality control, in which case they move on to the packaging department, where after they package it, guess what? It's put into quarantine again until we can validate that that end product meets all those criteria. And then even after that, we will retain samples for years and go back and put them into the artificial stomach and see, hey, what does this look like 2 years downstream? And I think that desire, that demand that we have to know not only what's in our products, but how they're going to perform when they're in our bodies, when they're consumed, this really set us apart and establishes a level of technology that most people don't realize. Most companies, I don't think, and I can't speak for every one of them, but most of them sort of assume things are going to happen the way they're supposed to. but that's not something that we've ever done. So the artificial stomach is a big step in that direction. And what I find it sort of intriguing now is I know we've gone beyond just the artificial stomach, and we now have what I'll call an artificial intestine. So because we like to know what goes on when they get in there too. So can you just give us a little glimpse of that? I don't want to get again displaying any or just distributing any trade secrets here, but give us a little look into that element of our development these days.
Right. So, John, we as you said, we've used the artificial stomach for decades, and it was just a natural progression to develop the artificial intestine because, when we're developing products, we are designing quality in.
Yeah.
When we get to the point where we have a tablet formula, we know everything there is to know about the active ingredients. We know everything there is to know about the functionality of the tableting aids and how that's going to function within the formula. And we also know how stable the product is. We've tested for real time, or we've pushed the envelope a bit with accelerated testing with high heat and humidity. And we also know then about how the tablet's going to perform within your GI system. And that's the artificial stomach and the natural progression we develop the artificial intestine. So that helps us especially to understand and fine-tune develop the sustained release products like Super B and Super C, because we watch these tablets in the artificial stomach. They will start to release nutrients. We test that release of nutrients by periodically taking samples and testing them in the laboratory. After the appropriate period of time, typically 60 minutes, these things then move into the artificial intestine. That is an environment very similar to the human intestine in terms of the pH. It's a bit more alkaline than the stomach. We've adjusted for that intestinal pH. We also have its own different sort of peristaltic movement, so that the tablets are subjected to the type of movements that they would find in the intestines. And pulling samples periodically where we develop the release profile of the nutrients so that we know just how the nutrients will release in that slow fashion so that it's more bioavailable.
Right.
Also, though, that is also helpful to us in our garlic, enzyme, these sort of delayed release, intestinally targeted release products, so that in that gastric environment, 60-minute survival. We set the standard at 60 minutes because food typically will pass the stomach in an hour, so or less. We set it at the outside end, 60 minutes. Those tablets are like rocks. I mean, they will not degrade in that gastric environment.
Mm-hmm.
Once we move them into the intestinal environment, here I'm talking about those intestine targeted like garlic, that change in pH, because of the type of tableting aids that we use, that change in pH changes sort of the integrity of the tablet so that it starts to degrade right then. Mm-hmm. And because that's the appropriate place for those nutrients to be made available for uptake into the body. Yeah. So that tool is a great tool. I don't know why there's companies that don't. I think what happens, there's a lot of companies that feel like they can test quality in. And that's a fallacy. That cannot be done.
Yeah, right.
You have to use the tools that we have employed to design quality into the product.
Yeah, but our quality goals are very high. Obviously, we sell our tablets all over the world, so we have, from a regulatory perspective, for purity, potency, and consistency, and that sort of thing. We have to reach some pretty tough standards. We haven't had any trouble doing that because often we show up at a regulatory agency in a foreign country to find out that they actually expect less of us than we expect of ourselves when it comes to quality control. So, but I can tell you that delivering, the type of high performance, high technology tablets that that are present in NeoLife products is a really daunting task. And I wanted to take a little time here today to sort of share with the audience some of the things we go through. You know, if you look at a NeoLife tablet, you would think, oh, it's just another tablet. Well, you know, as I said in the beginning, that could not be further from the truth. It is a high technology nutrient delivery system that puts exactly the nutrients you need in exactly the forms you need them, just as they appear in the human food chain, to exact place in your gastrointestinal tract where they're going to provide the greatest benefit or the greatest bioavailability. And those sorts of differences are, I think, hard for people to see. It's not even easy really to talk about them because it's such a sophisticated technology. But from my perspective, having looked around and spent a lot of time in the industry, you know, working in the Council for Responsible Nutrition and involved in other agencies and groups from time to time, and working in the sciences quite a bit, the standards that we apply, our own standards are much higher than the standards that you would generally find out there. And it's something that separates us from other companies, that we continue to define what I would call the leading edge of product technology, not only from the nutrient delivery perspective, but from in this case, the tableting technology perspective too. So Mark, you know, it has been a pleasure. You and I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours more. I know when we were, having our earlier conversations, there's a lot to touch on. So, yeah. Yeah,
this is, I appreciate the chance to talk about something that I hardly ever get to talk very much about how these things get put together. I really enjoy this time, John. I know you and I have a lot of conversations about this, but I'm really happy to share it with some of the other folks as well as the NeoLife family. You did touch on you said the word validation. Okay, and that's very important because all the processes and products are validated so that they produce the same tablet, the same formula as intended every single time. So what's in the bottle matches what's on the label every time, every tablet.
Right.
And I do want to also say, you know, you talked about when you're out at meetings with the Council for Responsible Nutrition. Myself, I also attend different conferences, technical and scientific conferences. And we have people that will come up to us and say, you know, NeoLife has the best products in the industry. And it's very rewarding. And the only reason why we can say that people say that and why we have achieved that high level of quality and performance is because we have a great quality system that challenges us with every project. And it employs, when we're putting together a formula, it's not just the R&D team, but it's the quality team and it's our skilled production team that all work together that really make this NeoLife difference in the high NeoLife quality. And thanks, John. I really appreciate being able to chat with you today about this.
It's a pleasure, Mark. Like I said, we barely scratched the surface of tableting technology. So you know, maybe we can get together and talk about capsule technology or something like that later on.
Oh yeah,
you know, the technology involved here is always amazing.
Yeah,
and to those of you who have hung with us here and listened to our conversation about the NeoLife difference in high technology tablets, I want to thank you all for spending the time. I want to point out that, you know, the difference behind NeoLife products is, you know, pretty obvious everywhere you look. It's not like we do anything easy. It's because of the criteria we have that we put in place, the demands that we put upon ourselves to make sure that our products contain what they need to contain and deliver what we promise they're going to deliver on the label. The sources of the raw materials, both on the bioactive side, the extraction from plants like we do with flavonoids and cruciferous and other compounds like that, to the choice for the ingredients that we use to make the tablet, to provide the integrity in the bottle, but the activity in the dynamic delivery system once it's consumed, are all big big NeoLife differences. So I want to take a moment to thank you all for staying tuned here and listening in. And once again, to thank you, Mark, for sharing this with me. And it's been a real pleasure. Okay.
Thanks, John. It's been fun. Take care.
Yeah. See you down the road.